Welcome to Kim Talks Resilience, where we share stories of insight and inspiration in life, love, and business with resilient women from around the world. Speaking with authors, entrepreneurs, founders, and coaches to learn their strategies for a more resilient life so we can all build the life we love. I'm your host, Kim Hayden. Nina Szewczak, I think I got that, MS, CMgr, FCMI, is the Midlife Revolution Specialist. Love this. Sounds powerful. Midlife Revolution Specialist. Nina helps people overcome adversities fast and turn any situation from tragic to magic. Get more, not bitter. Get better, not bitter. And make life great again in 3 simple steps. 3 simple steps. This is awesome. Nina's experience, expertise, and professional education combine over 17 years of work and study in the realm of transformation and change, leadership and management, coaching and mentoring, and HR. And she is currently studying psychology and neuroscience of mental health. Alongside Nina's professional learning and growth, she has completely revolutionized her own life twice. Once driven by a desire to create a better life, and once driven by an adversity that she was facing. I bet we're going to hear all about both today. Welcome to the show, Nina.
Thank you so much for having me, Kim, and thank you for the wonderful introduction.
Oh, I love the word revolution because it's such a powerful word, right? It's just like, you don't think that it's not passive. There's nothing passive about it. It's like doing it. Awesome. So tell me a little bit, let's share with our audience, who is Nina?
Well, I think of myself as a forever foreigner or global citizen because originally I'm from Poland, but I've lived in the UK. I spent some time in Germany. I spent some time in Canada. So I'm basically a global citizen and a human who is on a constant evolution to become who I want to become. So I believe that life is too short to only get to know one version of yourself. Therefore, I constantly create new versions of myself, constantly dream up who do I want to be next and what do I want to create in life and what life do I want, and then go for it. And I really love the word revolution as well, and especially kind of at this time of my life where a lot of the times around the mid-age, it is perceived that we go through midlife crisis, and crisis is just such a negative word, and it doesn't have to be crisis. Like, we can create our own revolution. So so I'm a global citizen who is a lifelong learner, who is traveling, learning about new cultures and everything possible and exploring, and always an adventure, because I see life as an adventure too.
Global citizen. And that's actually, that is such a great way to put it, because as we have moved through COVID, we are seeing countries, Spain, just so you guys know, and I think I'm going to do this next year because I think Spain is warmer than Calgary right now. Just opened up. They have work visas now where you can actually, as a laptop warrior, as a global citizen, as a digital nomad, you can actually apply now to legally live in Spain as long as you can prove that your company, which is being revenues procured through your laptop. So that only feeds into that ability to be a global citizen, experience other countries. How many countries have you lived in, Nina?
Oh, in terms of living, 1, 2, 3, 4, but I travel quite a lot. So I've been to various different countries, also various different more remote places like the Arctic or Easter Island. I do love to venture out to places that are a little bit less accessible, because I just love how much you learn through travel. I think, I'm a person who studies a lot and I love the world of academia, but I think nothing teaches you really as much as the real life experience, exploring and what life throws your way as well.
And conversations. It's amazing what you learn through conversations. Did you say Arctic? What?
Arctic, yeah, the Arctic.
Okay, real quick, before we dive into what you do, tell us real quick, because listeners want to know, that's me. Arctic. How did you end up in the Arctic and what were you doing there?
Well, I went on a pirate ship, so it was a it was a sailing trip around the Arctic a few years ago, and I basically wanted to see polar bears, and I love the cold, so I wanted to explore it, and it was wonderful to be in a place that had more polar bears than people, and no signal for a couple of weeks. No, it was wonderful to see a part of the world that's just so remote, and experience it, and and see life in perspective of how little we really are in comparison to the world and everything that's going on.
I have a girlfriend, Marianne Gillespie. She's big time coach in real estate. And she's like established so many systems here in Canada. And she's pretty amazing, but she's kind of like you. She just will pick up and go. Like she spear fishing and like all the crazy stuff. She's an Ironman athlete. Are you an athlete by chance?
Well, no, no. No. As far away as possible from it.
Well, you look like you could keep up with Marianne. Like Marianne's like amazing. But, I'll have to connect you too because she's gone to some pretty interesting places also. Myself, I'm just as happy sitting in a Marriott with room service. So let's go into a little bit of what you do. Walk me through what you do and how it serves. You good with that?
Sure. So, of course, I do a variety of ways. So, like, I often joke that, I turn tragic into magic, but my main purpose is transformation and change. So I help people to transform their lives, revolutionize their lives. Sometimes it's a whole life, sometimes it is a part of life. Depending on what people need. Some examples also transitioning people out of careers. So sometimes people have that perceptional or perceived by society success of being in a senior leadership position, let's say, and actually it doesn't fulfill them and they want to do something completely different. But that fear of judgment of what will my family think? My family expects me to be in a position with certain title, and so on, and how do I actually go on my own path and create the happiness that I want. So that's quite a lot of my work. My other side, which is launching now, also is working with businesses on transformation and change, working within the well-being zone as well, so mental health, and actually training people how to use the power of the mind and how to actually use our brains, which, our brain is the most sophisticated and intelligent piece of kit on the planet. So how do you use it to our advantage rather than disadvantage? Because if you allow your mind to run you, it will run you on an autopilot, which isn't always very helpful. So that's really great piece that I'm super excited about as well. And in general, work in consultancy capacity. So depending on what people need, obviously a lot of my background is within HR and leadership. So often I'll work with leaders on what does the business need or what do they need as a leader, and so on. And then we work on transformation and change. So that's my biggest thing, because I feel so passionate that our life on this planet is just a brief sparkle, it's so short. And we don't really need to overcomplicate so much, and we don't need to suffer as much as we do. So that's what I work with people on: transformation and change, and turning tragic into magic, and making sure that we're getting better, not bitter, and that we're creating the lives that we really want. Because very often we have that perception that we should be something, or we should do something, or we should be in this role, and all the shoulds and the expectations that we put on ourselves drive us towards a direction that is not always the most fulfilling.
Okay. Do you believe it's easier to stay in a positive mindset when you are in a group setting versus that positive mind space when you're by yourself?
Well, depending on what group you're in. In some groups,
Point.
might not be easy to be positive. But I do believe that the environment and the people that you surround yourself with will have massive impact, because I think that everything starts with the self. So you need to have, you need to have the reins of your mind in terms of the positivity and be in charge of your mind. And unless your internal environment is spot on, it doesn't matter where you are or who you're with. If you can't manage this and you're unhappy, you won't be happy, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do believe that our environment, it also plays a big role, because no matter how positive you are, no matter how much work you do, if you're surrounded by negativity the whole time, at some point it does chip away, and it becomes increasingly more and more difficult to keep charging ahead and to keep positivity. And I don't even mean like, oh, just be happy, be positive, think positive thoughts. I'm not like that at all. But I believe in the fact that, not like that. I think, it's important to be, I think it's important to be positive, but also realistic. It is okay to acknowledge that sometimes life throws you things you don't want to have to deal with, but you need to go through. That sometimes it's hard, that sometimes you want to scream to heavens, that sometimes you sob and you don't know how you're going to get from 1 minute to the next. So to me, being positive is building that resilience that gives you the confidence and self-trust that that no matter what comes your way and no matter how hard it might be, you will be able to get through and get out of it and come out on the other side and be stronger.
Okay, so I want to take this in a couple directions. I have a couple things for you. One, I want to talk about mindset. So I hear a lot around manifestation and mindset. Mm-hmm. However, you just talked about you still need to know where you go. So you still need a map. You still need that sequence. Step 1, step 2, step 3, right? And a lot of people who talk about manifestation in its as being the totality, right? 100% what they do, they feel that it's negative to get stuck in the steps that you need to make. That would be your map to success, right? Where is the balance? Because you still have to know what you're doing next. I can sit here and envision, everything. But if you don't have a map, if you don't know your numbers, if you don't know the people you're going to talk to or how you're going to reach out to them, what is the balance, you think, when we look at energy wise and putting that effort in between the map and the mindset?
Yeah, I think they're both equally important and they both play a role. So I think, the mindset is important mainly because, there's so many things, but one of the reasons why is because our brains have a natural tendency for confirmation bias. So the brain will seek examples of what you believe in and will show you those examples while filtering out everything else. It has to filter out tons of things every day because we would become overloaded, right? So and I always use the same example of a red car, but it could be something else. But if you're wanting to buy a red car, you suddenly start to notice so many more red cars on the roads. Like, why? There isn't many more red cars on the road, but you've put your focus on it and your attention on it. So your brain will seek out the examples and show them to you, right? So it works like that with being positive or negative. If you think the world is a bad place and life is hard, your brain will seek out examples of the world being a bad place and life being hard and show them to you, right? Equally, if you think actually there are great opportunities and life can be wonderful and I can create my life, that's what your brain will do. Like, your brain will do whatever you train it to do. You need to be in charge. So in this way, mindset is paramount, because if you think, I sit in bed and I dream of having a castle and being a queen, but my mind is set for...
How'd you know? How'd you know? I want a butler too.
It will come with a butler too, Kim. If that's the dream, but then you get up and you feel I'm not good enough, like I don't have the skills, I can't do anything, whatever, then there is a bit of a mismatch, right, between the dream of being a queen with a castle and a butler and how you're feeling and what you're doing on a daily basis. But when it comes to the plan, I think you need to have an end goal 100%, because otherwise how do you know where you're going? Like, if you want to achieve something, if you want to create something, it's like when you get in a car, you put in a sat nav that I want to get to, you might want to go to Banff, yeah, not too far from Calgary, but anyway, or you want to go to Vancouver, let's say. you put it in a sat nav, but the sat nav will take you there, but you still put, I'm going to Banff or I'm going to Vancouver, right? Because otherwise, where is it going to take you? If you say, take me somewhere nice, it may by chance take you somewhere nice, but equally it might not. So you need to have that destination in mind. And I call it like an anchor. It's something that you can see in the future. You know where you're heading, the direction that you're heading in. And this is also something that needs to drive you, because when times get tough, you need to be able to look at that destination and know, okay, this is a little bit hard, but I am going there because of, and you know why you want to be there. You know why you want to be in Banff or Vancouver. And I think you need to have the first step. So for me, the first step and the end goal are key. And I think the bit in the middle, you can leave it a little bit more open, because you need to allow for things to emerge. You need to allow for creativity, for learning, and for growth. Because if I want to create something completely new in my life, I need to become someone else in order to deliver the results that I'm after. Because if I was capable of delivering them now, I would have already done it. So I need to learn and grow and evolve in order to deliver that big dream, that vision, like getting to Vancouver stuff. But in order to become this person, it doesn't happen overnight. You need to do that every day.
Yeah.
Every day you think, I need to be this version of me in order to be in Vancouver. What does this version think? And what would this version do? And what decision would this version make? So the becoming is important. So if you were to map out everything on a spreadsheet from today until, let's say, I want to be in Vancouver in 5 years, obviously it's not Vancouver, it's the castle with the butler, right? And being a queen, let's say. If you map it out exactly step by step of what you're going to do over the next however many years, where you only are going to map out based on what you currently know and who you are and how you operate, whereas you need to become someone else. So to me, the first and the last step, you're doing it based on what you want and who you are, and then you're mapping out, okay, who do I need to become? And then every day you learn and you grow. And of course, you need to learn, a lot, probably, if the dream is big, as we all do. But that's the exciting bit. You know where you're starting. You need to take the first step. You need to choose courage over fear and actually take the first steps and map out the first initial steps. You need to know where you're going. And then you need to be able to allow for things to come in and emerge. But obviously not just by sitting there going, oh, where's my castle coming? Where's my butler? Why are they not here yet? But as you take the first step, the next step will emerge, right? Because you meet someone, you learn something, you make a connection somewhere, another idea comes up, and that leads you from A to B to C towards your destiny or dream.
It's fascinating, because it's really a balance. It's almost like you have to be ADHD with no ADHD. You have to be that big picture, but be able to bring it in at a cellular level, right? So be able to grasp the macro and the micro all within your planning. And one will be more challenging than the other, just based on the way that you're wired. I know that myself, I've always been more on the macro. And so over the last 18, 24 months, I've had to do nothing but sit still and start drilling down into that micro, right? What is this next 90-day cycle going to look like on a week by week basis, which then allows me to drill it down into a day by day basis? Because it's fascinating. We make on average, get this, we make on average 35,000 decisions in a day. That is, if you are awake for 18 hours, that's 19, just over 1,900 decisions per hour that you make. Yet they say that we only have four high functioning hours in our day. So we sit here and go, oh, well, I work from home now, I should be able to work 8, 10, 12 hours a day. And the reality is that's not reality. Your brain is still only at peak level for about 4 hours a day. I want to tap into it was a really interesting conversation. So I saw this on a show I was watching the other night, probably like Bill Nye or something like that. But they were talking about how you have your 40 and over, where your 40-year-olds and over have all worked more in communal spaces, right? So office spaces, and they've had the mentorship to move up forward. What happens though in the world today where 30% of the workforce will not go back to the office. So they're not getting that engagement of that mentorship within their workspace. So think of it like I love the example they gave was lawyers. So you get these junior lawyers come in to offices, and what they would do is they would mentor underneath, senior lawyers, partners and such, in order for them to grow and learn. And if they don't have that, let's talk a little bit about that in the sense of where do you see mindset, motivation, and mentorship for especially our younger generation who basically are kind of being left out on their own, right? A lot of people are working in these silos of just their own house or their own home office. And you know, what do you think are some of the solutions that we're going to see come in play for those aspiring professionals who are kind of on their own?
Mm, it is definitely tricky, and this is like we've learned that obviously over the past couple of years, where without that interaction, and even just being in an office environment where you overhear conversations and what's going on, so you can be more aware about what's happening within the business, and that's really helpful because you can connect A with B and so on, and you can be more effective with what you're doing. That now no longer exists unless you make an effort to connect with someone via a Zoom or call or whatever other online channel. But I think the key thing going forward, where obviously the dynamics have changed and the people don't want to go back to how things used to operate. I think the responsibility is kind of halfway. I feel like for myself and people my age, and for all of us who have been around for a longer period of time and quite experienced in business and so on, I always feel that it is my responsibility to always look back and think, who is right behind me, who is coming up, who is just entering the world of business, and how do I grab their hand and pull them up? Because I have always benefited from that in the traditional sense. I've always also gone out of my way to find mentors, but I feel that it's really important for all of us to always look, and I said it behind, and I don't really like it because it seems like someone is behind you, but the people who are up and coming, who are entering the world of work, like I feel like partly we are responsible for their success. And also, these are the people who are the future of the world, the future leaders, the future politicians, doctors, and so on. Like, it is in our interest to help them and share our skills. So it's always look and think, who is coming up and how do I help those people? And don't just wait for them to come up to you, but go out of your way and become the mentor to someone, and coach someone and so on, and reach out and build that relationship. But equally, I feel it's important for the younger generations to also go out of their way and be like, okay, I need to learn, and how am I going to learn? Who are the people that I can learn from? Where are they? Reach out. So I feel like we can meet halfway and make sure that we basically look out for each other, because I can learn so much from the younger generations as well. It's not like they only learn from us. It totally works both ways. So I feel it's important that both of us as generations look towards each other and make an effort to coach and mentor and be like, okay, how do we make this work to make sure that it works for all of us? Because it's also it's helpful for me to be a mentor and coach others. You learn so much through that, and so it's not just about the reward. It is super rewarding, but it's also helpful, and I think it works the same for the younger generation.
So in your neck of the woods, in your side of the world, are what type of opportunities financially are there for female entrepreneurs? That seems to be a real great challenge that I hear about regularly. Women being underfunded, overworked, and underfunded. So, what are you seeing? I would love to get kind of that gauge over on the other side of the pond, basically.
Absolutely. And this is still a struggle. And like, on one hand, I am so grateful that we have so much freedom and independence as we do, because, less than 100 years ago, this wasn't the case. And people really had to fight for the freedoms that we now, take for granted and no longer think about. But equally, I'm not blind to the fact that we are so far away from where we need to be and could be in terms of women in business. And women are underfunded and we're still overlooked. Luckily, things are changing slowly, but I feel that they could be changing much, much quicker for us. And And it's amazing to see so much female leadership coming up. And I don't feel like we need to put female against male, like one is better than the other. It's not, but it's about like all of us having opportunities and equally acknowledging that women often have got more responsibilities. Whether that's at home, between work and home and so on. Like I had a conversation with someone last week who was away on business. We were at a business event, and basically something had happened to her son, and the school was ringing her. She was like, well, I'm really sorry, I'm at a business event, like, can you call my husband? They're like, no, we want to speak to the mother. She's like, I'm not there, like, I can't help. But the school wouldn't want to talk to the father, even though like the parents are equal, right? So even things like that are still getting in the way. But I feel like there's so many opportunities where maybe at the start, like, we were getting into entrepreneurship and into business, and it was all very much trying to build support groups around women, which is super helpful. Of course, there's a power in a group, right? But I see more and more that now there are opportunities of female entrepreneurs working with corporates. So actually, changing the dynamics, and it's now no longer I'm either entrepreneur or either in corporate, and the two worlds don't meet or don't merge too often, but actually you can find better balance by being a consultant as an entrepreneur into the corporate world and so on. So opportunities like that are starting to emerge, and I know a lot of women who have gone into the third sector, so I've got the charities and now getting some good grants as well. And the grants are for education. So for example, people who are educating on equality, diversity and inclusion are now getting a lot of grants to go and deliver into the corporate world and so on, which I think is wonderful, because that, the government is finally acknowledging that this is where the money needs to be spent, and it's really helpful. But it also helps the women to basically create the careers how they want to create around their life and still be able to be linked to the business world without feeling like you have to choose one thing or another, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's also getting comfortable with some of the language when we ask for money, when we go around and pick. I know that my husband, when he writes something up for me, I said, but that's not 100%. He goes, that's what they want to hear. It's like, and it's been proven time and again that women, when we put in a resume or an application or some sort of write-up, we want to be 100% on that, where the man will put it in and it's like 50%. It's like his secretary organized an event for his clients, and all of a sudden now he's an event planner. So, and there's boldness in there, and I think that's something that a lot of women we struggle with, is that we see the line between bold and braggart to be a bit muddied, and we're afraid to step over. We're afraid that if we say this, that people will see us as bragging versus being bold about what we've accomplished. So what I would love to do now is, can you share an actionable step somebody could do today that you help your clients with? What is something somebody who listens to this could actually jot it down and go and implement today? One thing.
Well, I actually think this can link really nicely to what you were saying about decision making, because I think everything is a choice. So everything starts with a decision. So the single best small step or big step for anyone can be to decide what you want. Because without that decision, you will always be where you are. You need to decide, whether that's going for the career, whether that is moving a country, whether it's starting your own business or whatever. You need to decide, and then you need to take the first step. So to me, everything is a choice. Whatever we do in life, like, of course, things happen to us, but even when things happen, you have a choice in how you respond to it. You have a choice with what you're going to get out of the situation and whatever is happening in the experience. So for me, the single most important thing is decide not to settle for, oh, this will do, No. Decide for what you want to go for and the best that you can do, or the best that you want for you, rather than settling, or, decide not to put up with things that no longer serve you. Or decide to go for your dream, or decide finally to get clarity on the dream if you feel unclear or whatever. But to me, the single best thing that anyone can do at any time, is decide, and don't just sit in there, oh, it is what it is. Like, it is what it is to me. It's just such a hopeless saying, because it means that you can't change anything, and you can.
And making that decision is critical. I would say write it down and tell somebody. Like, take action. Hold yourself accountable. And I know that everybody has something rolling around in their head, right? You have a dream or a goal or the next step, and things are scary. I'm right now in the process of having to again. I mean, anybody who has listened to a few of these episodes knows that I am incredibly ADHD. Like, I've got 6 projects on the go all the time. And nothing scares me more than sitting down and putting in the linear infrastructure, the systems, and identify. And right now we're actually looking at, in 6 weeks, moving all of our platforms over, which means I have to build out where every piece of everything that's been done so far will go. And this is literally what has stopped me from moving forward. So it's like, okay, folks, just do it. Just get out there and just like tell everybody, okay, this is what I'm gonna do in April. I'm gonna be moved over to this platform, and then just reverse engineer. Today I need to put 90 minutes in on writing out my SOW and my scope of work, and I'll just keep backfilling it until it's right. But it's life can be very scary and very overwhelming. And nobody has it all. Nobody has it all. Steve Jobs wasn't actually building all those phones, right? He knew enough. He got everything up and running initially, but Steve Jobs is the last person you wanted to be on an elevator with, because he had zero social skills. So the reality is, you can't be everything. So ask for help when you need it. Write it down, share it around. You never know who's going to be in your sphere ready to step in and help you carry the load. Speaking of carrying the load, can you share with us, Nina, a time in your life that without resiliency, you wouldn't be where you are?
Yes, I mean, lots of times like this, but I think one of the biggest times is when I was 20 and decided that, when I didn't speak a word of English and I didn't know anyone and I didn't have a plan, I decided to pack a bag, take a 24-hour bus journey to the UK to learn the language. And the first few months were horrendous. I was crying on the phone to my mom pretty much every day because I didn't know anyone. You feel lonely. There's lots of bureaucracy. I'd never been to the UK prior to that. So you just on your own have no idea what's going on and trying to learn, and everything feels like it's being thrown in your face. So that definitely has been a moment without resilience, I definitely wouldn't be where I am today. So one of the biggest moments of my life, I think.
I just can't even imagine not being able to speak with people, right? Not being able to actually communicate. Like, this is quintessentially what makes us human, is the power of our voice, right?
Yeah, and back then there was no Google. There wasn't even a Google. There wasn't even internet on the phone, right? Like, text messages were it, but obviously you needed to speak the language if you wanted to text someone. So things were so much more complex, and there weren't many Polish people in the UK back then, or nowhere near as many as now. Now the system and the infrastructure is so much better and so much more effective, but back in 2004 that definitely wasn't the case, and it wasn't a pleasant experience. But when my mom was saying to me, why don't you just go back home, I was like, no, I am 20 years old, I'm going to learn whatever life is trying to teach me here. And I was super determined to make it work, because I knew that the lesson I'm going to get, I will never be able to get that through a qualification. I can only learn that through actually experiencing it.
Yeah, no, I just can't even. Yeah, now I could go somewhere and I'll just put it in my phone and they'll translate it. So yes, much has changed over the last few years. And it's not even just the breakdown in communication. It's it's being alone, right? So good on you for doing that, because not a lot of people would have courage to strike out on their own. Um, it's very scary. It's very scary, and anything can go wrong. But perseverance is absolutely the best. Let's talk books. What's feeding your soul? What are you? I know that you have mentioned a book, and well, you have a book online. But what are you reading right now?
Well, right now, actually, I'm reading a lot of books to do with my neuroscientific studies and psychology. So a lot of that, I think I've always read a lot of books since a kid. Library was the place where I would spend a lot of time, and the people there would always laugh at the team, like, "Not you again. You've exhausted pretty much all the books in the library." But I read that. Actually, read a great book on Chat GPT that just came out last week. So that was super helpful as well. Read a book recently on how to become basically from an expert to an influencer as well, by Divya. So the Chat GPT is by Vince Warnock from New Zealand, and then they're from expert to influencer is by Divya from Beyond Confidence as well. So these were the last two that I read in the past kind of 3 weeks. And a lot of psychology books, some of Dr. Joe Dispenza's books as well on breaking the habit of being yourself, and placebo. And I have started reading a book on death. Maybe it doesn't sound very good, but learning a little bit more about that. And, because there isn't really that much conversation in the world about dying, it's just seen as a kind of sad thing. So I want to learn a little bit more about it from people that have studied it as an experience and the impact it has on us and the people around. It actually does, I imagine it's not going to have an impact on me when I go, because I'm not going to be here anymore, but everyone who stays behind and so on. So yeah,
the legacy we leave, well, that's an entire reading list. That's like 6 months for the average person, and this is just in the last few weeks for you. Tell us a little bit, where can people find you, follow you? And you have a book on your website. Can you share that information with us?
Absolutely. So people can find me on my website, which is www.themidliferevolution.com. I'm also on Instagram under Nina_the Midlife Revolution, and then Facebook and LinkedIn also just under Nina Szewczak, so NinaSzewczak. And I've got a couple of books that are available and free on my website. One of them is called The Midlife Revolution, that basically takes people through the process of creating change and transformation within your life. So based on my experiences of revolutionizing my life, but also my work with clients, private clients and businesses. And then a book called Lemonade, which goes through the whole process of my life falling apart completely, and me rebuilding it last year. So it's all available for free. Everyone's welcome to download it. And of course, find me on social media, and I would love to connect.
Oh, so you got some great free reading there, folks. Is there anything that I haven't asked that you wish I would have asked at this point in time?
No, I think you have asked some really great questions. I think, I've loved our conversation, and I love you for your passion and your enthusiasm. And also, I really love what you said, that you like the macro, right? You like the vision, yet like you have to force yourself to obviously reverse engineer things and so on. And that, I think there's a really important message in this, because very often I hear our attention span is shorter and shorter. People can't focus, like we don't have time for this or that. Yes, that is true. But also, like, you train your brain not to have focus, you can train your brain to have focus. And even when the mind is saying maybe start from tomorrow, or I can't deal with this, or I dislike it, there is a way of saying, no, I'm going to do this because it's important, because it's taking you to your castle, right? To being the queen with the butler. So I thought that what you said in there is a really important message, that in order to be successful, you can't just do whatever you fancy doing whenever you fancy doing it. Like, of course, I am a great believer in using help and experts and people who are better than me at a lot of things to make things work. But equally, it is also important to recognize what you need to do and also do the bits that are not the fun bits, not the bits that are the love bits.
I love what you just said though about reverse engineering, because that is, I don't engineer forward. I reverse engineer everything. So I have to do it. And then I have to slow down just enough so I can record it. And then I can break it down backwards. And it's crazy how where I thought something was 12 steps and I continue to break it down and break it down and break it down so I can get my staff doing it. It ends up being 48 and 65 steps, because when we're doing stuff, we're working on so many different levels that we don't realize. We may think we're doing one thing, but we're actually doing like 5 or 6 things all at the same time. We're thinking in all these different spaces. So, yes, folks, what does that saying? Eat the frog? Eat the frog first?
Eat the frog, yeah,
Eat
absolutely,
the
yeah.
frog
Because once
first.
you've eaten the frog for breakfast, there's nothing worse that can happen, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Eat the frog first. All right. So I'd love for you to share a quote, something that inspires you. And I'm actually put you right, because this will be good clip for later. I'm gonna put you full screen, and I'd love for you to close us out on a quote today.
Well, one of my favorite quotes is the Audrey Hepburn quote that as you grow older, you realize that you have two hands for a reason, one to help yourself and one to help others. And I've loved this quote for years, and I always use it. And yeah, and I believe that we have two hands for a reason, for that reason.
And I can see you being an Audrey Hepburn fan. Like you've got such that you got an old Hollywood look to you. So if
Oh, wow.
no,
Thank
seriously,
you.
yeah, you do, because you've got the petite features and the big eyes and everything. It's like, oh, I can see that. I can see that.
Oh,
Absolutely.
wow. I've never heard that. Well, this has just made my day, Kim. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And if you're just listening to on this show, be sure to jump over and visit with Nina, because she is absolutely lovely inside and out. And you'll see what I'm saying. If I put like a very cool 1940s wig on her, I could make you up look like a 1940s glamour star in a heartbeat. That would be so much fun. But that would mean we have to meet in person, and that's on my list. I'm on my list to go overseas and visit all the amazing women that I've had opportunities to chat with. But I just want to say, folks, it is about choice. It is about choice. And it's hard. It's hard. Edison says he did not fail 10,000 times. He found 10,000 ways the light bulb would not work. So you have to have those failures and those setbacks for something to truly, truly make impact and be worthwhile. And I know they're hard. Trust me, I've had many days where I've sat here and I've wanted to go and cry actually, I have been known to go and cry midday. Because it's just the way it is. But if you want to do great things you have to put in great effort. And don't do it alone. Reach out, find somebody, because sometimes when your mindset or your motivation or your map is a little wrinkled or creased, you're going to need somebody else to shine that light and help you keep moving forward. And that's okay, because there is not a single Olympic athlete that makes it to the Olympics without a coach or a mentor. There is not a single person that has climbed a mountain. There's not a single person. Even Tony Robbins has people that he leans into. So I want y'all, if you feel that your resiliency is lagging just that wee bit, be sure to listen and lean in to our resilient community here at resilientgift.com. Resilientgift.com is a community. It's the Resilient series. We have our magazine, we have our podcast, we have our conferences and our summits, anything and everything. And there will always be a free aspect. So there is no barrier of cost. So I want to see every woman out there go the next level, because we build great communities, we connect and we support each other. Guess what? The world gets better. We can heal the world. We can definitely make this world a place that we want to say, I left that legacy. I may be dead and gone tomorrow, but I've left something amazing, truly inspirational behind. And you got it in you. You got it in you. So until next time, again, thank you for sharing your most valuable resource, your time, with us here today at Kim Talks Resilience. I'm your host, Kim Hayden. And you know what? Be good to yourself.
Thank you for joining us here today at Kim Talks Resilience. I'm your host, Kim Hayden, and I'd love to invite you to our resilient community at resilientgift.com. That's resilientgift.com, and we'll send you our magazine and tickets for upcoming events and all sorts of cool things we do here. So be sure to keep watching, and you know what? Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share, because we all know that sharing is caring.